Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the Scriptures.
This is our fourth lesson for developing church leadership in the church. And I really got to move along in this lesson because I've got like at least 17 passages, many more than that, verses to go through. Dozens and dozens of verses to go through tonight. We're going to continue our study of the different kinds of leadership in the church. There's no real debate on whether or not there should be or can be male leaders in the church. And males in a prominent position within the church. But there is some discussion and debate as to whether or not there can or should be female leaders in the church today. And especially today when we have, and even in the congregations of the Lord's church, around the country, there are places where there are women elders and female deacons and female preachers and evangelists and even female apostles.
I've seen it. I know where church is.
Okay? So it's out there. And so a lot of times there's a reaction. And unfortunately, for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. That's the law of physics. But one of the laws of physics. But I don't want you to overreact. With anything you hear tonight, I want you to think. I want you to digest. I want you to examine the Scriptures and search the Scriptures daily to see whether these things are so. Yeah. And that's really all that matters. Now, I have to hit the ground running and talk about this. So I want you to remember a couple of things, though, as we discuss these passages. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and we're going to be there for a little bit, so you can turn there now. 1 Corinthians 11, I like verse 16. After he just gets done talking about women's place in the church and men's place within the church, in 1 Corinthians 11, in verse 16 he says, but if anyone's inclined to be contentious, if anybody wants to argue with this, what I just said, we have no other practice, nor have the churches of God. Understand? But he already said there, if you're inclined to argue with me, you just remember that we don't do anything else. This is the way it is in what he just discussed. And we're going to go back over that. And he'll say in 1 Corinthians 14, in verse 37, if anyone thinks that he's a prophet or spiritual, let him acknowledge that the things that I'm writing to you are the Lord's commandment. And if you don't recognize this, you're not recognized. So that's some pretty bold, point blank, in your face, I say with love, statements. Saying, look, this is not a matter of debate. This is a matter of God said it, I believe it, that settles it. And that's what we have to get down to. And that's the way we'll have unity in the church of believers, in the body of believers. Now, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, we're still going to continue on this thing about women in the church today. And the whole night's going to be about that. Women in the church in the first century, in the New Testament church, and therefore in the church today by those who believe and respect the New Testament pattern and want to emulate it. I want you to know before I go on reading this that these verses do not say to me that women need to sit down, shut up, and be quiet, and women should be seen and not heard. That's not what I'm saying from these passages. And you need to understand that as strong as sometimes the language is in these passages, I am going to say what these passages say, but not more and not less. And you're going to see some verses and passages which obviously mean that women don't have to be completely quiet all the time, in every circumstance, in every place. For example, last week in our class, we went over the fact that younger women are to teach. Older women are to teach, rather.
Yeah.
Older women are to teach. Teach who? The younger women and their children. Don't tell me that's not an important job. The most important job, it's to teach. Older women are to teach their daughters how to love their husbands,
Yes, sir.
how to love their children, how to keep that family together.
Yes.
And when women fall down on that job, the family disintegrates. Yes, when men don't teach the right things, that sometimes the church will disintegrate, but here's the family, the core
Yeah.
of the family, which really is the core of the church. That's an awesome responsibility that's really handed over to the women, the mothers, and to teach other women and their children and their families. Okay? So I'm not saying that women don't have a place. And we're going to see more of a place than some people in the New Testament church have been willing to recognize. And again, I'm not talking about any extreme. I'm not speaking about letting women become elders and evangelists and preachers, unless the Bible says they can be. Then fine. And I'm also not saying that women should shut up and be seen and not heard, and that they have no influence or responsibility or interaction with men unless they're spoken to. I'm not saying that either, because the New Testament doesn't teach that either.
Yeah.
So either way, those are extreme positions taken by people who just don't have a breadth, a knowledge of the breadth and the width and the depth of the Word in the New Testament. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and let's start with verse 1. Be imitators of me, just as I also am of Christ. Now, I praise you because you remember me in everything, and hold firmly to the traditions, just as I delivered them to you. But I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man. And the man is the head of a woman. And God is the head of Christ. For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. But it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved. Let her cover her head. For man ought not to have his head covered, since he is the image and the glory of God, but the woman is in the glory of, or is the glory of man, created in the glory of man, in the image of man. So he's going right back to the creation for his reasoning again, like he did in 1 Timothy chapter 2. Not culture. And he's telling them, don't you go with your local culture, which was doing the wrong thing. Cutting their hair short, shaving it off, not showing any submission. But what? And indeed, man was not created for the woman's sake, but the woman for the man's sake. Therefore, the woman ought to have the symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. Now, what does that mean? I don't want to get too far into it right now. Jude, verse 6, and 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4 will discuss the rebellion of the angels who would not stay in their submissive within their position, and Satan led the revolt. And that's what he's talking about, the angels that did not hold to their position that God created them to hold. So he's saying, look, the woman ought to have this symbol of authority over her head because of what happened to the angels. Look what happened to them. If no other reason. However, in the Lord, neither is the woman independent of the man, nor the man independent of the woman. For as the woman originates from the man, so also man has his birth through the woman. And all things originate from God. Men and women need each other. That's the way God designed it. Yeah. It's a nice thing. He's not saying one's more important than the other. And all originate from God. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Look, here's my reasoning. Doesn't even nature itself tell you that if a man has long hair, it's a dishonor to him? Except in the 20th century, 21st century, of course. And how does nature itself tell you that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? Are you looking at me, people? Are you watching me? How about it, Kevin? Doesn't even nature itself tell you that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? Nature makes sure that basically, if you're a guy, this hair ain't long for this world. But if a woman has long hair, it's a glory to her. For her hair is given to her for a what? What's the covering under discussion? Her hair is given to her for a what? A covering. So if you're inclined to argue with me about this, just know that we have no other practice. Nor do any of the churches of God. Now, in this whole thing, women are to be in subjection to men. Man is the head of the woman as Christ is the head of the church. Yeah. That doesn't mean that a woman can scream and argue with her husband and fight with him any more than the church can, with God's approval, do that with Christ. Think about it. Just think about it. If man is the head of the woman, just as Christ is the head of the church and God is the head of Christ, then the Father is the head of Christ, then what is he saying here? Is there a hierarchy, so to speak? Is there a level of responsibility and authority here?
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson's helped you, and God bless you in your search for truth.